everybody, and welcome to the Ava Gardner Museum and our Ava Chats. I'm Lynell Seabold, the Executive Director of the museum, and I'm joined by a couple of very special guests today. I have Lora Stocker here, who is an honorary board member of the Ava Gardner Board of Directors. She's also our social media strategist. We are very excited to have Anthony Uzarowski here today. He is with us to talk about the Ava Gardner book that he wrote. It's called Ava A Life in the Movies. This is one of my favorite Ava books, and the reason why it is very well researched. They did a lot of in-depth talk about Ava's films, which is a little different than the typical Ava book. And the pictures, it's basically an Ava pictorial. There's some beautiful pictures in here. It's worth the book just for the pictures. So we're here to talk to Anthony a little bit about the book, a little bit about the process of writing it, and he has been here and been through the museum, and we'll talk to him a little bit more about what he thought about the museum. I'll send it over to you.
Oh. Well, Anthony, we just want to thank you so much for taking the time to come all the way to North Carolina to walk in the footsteps of where Ava Gardner got her start. We, as I'll echo what Lynell said, we absolutely love your book, and we know that you co-wrote this with Kendra Bean, and she's a great friend of yours. And we would, maybe let's start with kind of how you identified Ava Gardner as a subject for, because this is the first book, your first book, and how did you kind of come to Ava and identify her as the subject for your first work?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a thrill to finally be here after so many years of, reading about the place and seeing all the pictures, and to just be in Ava's, homeland is very, very special to be talking to you. So thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, the book came about. Well, I've loved Ava since I was very small because I heard stories from my mom that she had been my grandfather's favorite movie star. So I kind of grew up knowing the name before I really knew anything about her or seen any of her pictures. But then I remember watching The Barefoot Contessa when I was maybe about 10 or 12 and just being absolutely blown away by her beauty and by her charisma on screen. And then she never left me, so she kind of stayed with me. I had this very special connection with her. I felt like I did, and I tried to read as much as I could about her, and then later I established a Facebook page, which unfortunately is no longer there, but at the time it was a big Facebook page with a lot of followers. And yes, Kendra and I were very good friends because of Gone with the Wind and Vivian Lee. Kendra had written a book about Vivian, a beautiful book. And then when it came time for her to think about another project, she approached me and said, I know you love Ava Gardner, and I know that you love writing and wanted to get into writing. So how about we do a book together on Ava? So that's kind of how it started. And at the time I was still at university, so I was just finishing my master's in film studies, actually. So I was writing my thesis and at the same time beginning to research this book. So it was obviously all of my, friends at university were like, you're writing a book. It was quite a big leap, and I wasn't quite sure that I was ready to do a book because, every writer will tell you never know whether you're quite ready to do a book. You may know a lot about the subject, but to actually do a book takes so much.
Yeah.
First of all, you have to know how to write. And yeah, I have to credit Kendra, really, she's been such a great friend, and she was very encouraging. She said, I read some of your stuff, I know that you are a very good writer and you love Ava. So it was really Kendra's sort of push and enthusiasm that convinced me that I was ready to do this. And then we were very lucky that we found a publisher. It's actually the same publisher who did the Vivian book, and they were on board to do this book. So it was quite smooth. Yeah. At least at first. Yeah, and then we just got to work, and it was a lot of research, and of course collecting all the photographs. So we went to a lot of sort of photography fairs, and we visited a lot of sort of personal collectors who had photos. And Kendra actually came to LA. I didn't come with her at that time, so she went to the Margaret Herrick Library, and she got a lot of materials from there. So it just took a long time to get everything together before we actually sat down to write it.
The research is amazing, and each film is detailed and just described so beautifully, and I'm just really impressed with that. As I said to you earlier, it's usually Ava books tend to be about her career or about her childhood or about her marriages, but this really focuses, and of course the name is A Life in Movies, really focuses on her film career, and I just think that is a really unique, that's what's unique about this book.
Thank you. I'm glad that it comes across as such, because that's what we kind of wanted, because both of us come from film studies background. We both did film studies at university, and we knew that there was a lot out there already about Ava's marriages and affairs and, you know, her wild living, and you know, people have always been fascinated by it, and we were too, but we also wanted to shed light on her as an actress, which so many people I think neglect, and she herself often had doubts about herself. So we really wanted to pay tribute to her legacy as a film star, because she had so many great performances, and she really is one of the great stars of the classic Hollywood period. So it was very important to us to pay tribute to that. But we also obviously talk about her life and her many interesting friendships. That was another thing. We didn't want to just focus on her romantic relationships, but we wanted to also explore these other relationships that she had. And she had so many interesting friendships, and she had so many different facades to her. So she was friends with writers and poets and artists, as well as just regular people. So we really wanted to, or tried to put all of that. It's so hard because she's such a complex, such a rich person. So I hope we managed to at least give people a taste of what kind of person Ava was.
Well, and I really, you know, to kind of piggyback again on what Lynell said, I love that, you know, you tell the book is written very chronologically. So you get a sense of kind of, you know, her beginnings and her experience in early Hollywood, how she built her career, how it developed over time, at the same time that she's having these relationships or dealing with, you know, complicated interactions with the press that frustrated her, or building these really lifelong friendships with people that she considered family. And, you know, you had the opportunity to actually speak to some of her friends or peers, or, you know, I would love to hear kind of what that experience was like, how you kind of contacted those folks, and the opportunities to get to interview them, and how that helped inform some of your writing.
Yes, that was actually important, of course, and it was challenging because obviously a lot of people who knew Ava and worked with Ava are no longer with us, so that was the first obstacle. And then obviously, you know, trying to find people and also get them to open up, because as you said, so many things have been written about Ava over the years, and some of them less accurate than others. So people are quite reluctant, like, oh, how is this going to be any different? Why should I talk to you? So it was important for us to convince people, you know, we are really taking a different approach, and we are film scholars rather than sort of journalists on the lookout for a hot, you know, story.
Scandal or
exactly.
anything, yeah.
So in the end, we managed to speak to some interesting people. I mean, we spoke to Robert Graves' son, we spoke to Tina Sinatra, spoke to some people from Ava's life in London, which, you know, are lesser known relationship, including Michael Garrity, who was her neighbor at Ennismore Gardens, and also a close friend. And then he subsequently actually became a close friend to me. So every time I visit him, it's, you know, entering that building where Ava lived, and it's just such a special experience. But yeah, so that was very important, because Ava's voice is so elusive, you know, it's so hard to find her voice, because there aren't any really interviews, like sort of filmed interviews. She didn't go on talk shows, she was very private. So just to pin it down and to find what kind of person she really was beneath obviously the beautiful publicity created
of what you think she is.
Exactly.
You know? And that really gets to a lot of the work we try to do here at the museum. You know, we are so fortunate to have a collection that covers both her private life and her personal life, and we're in her hometown, and we're able to kind of explore all these facets of her, and we really try to show who the real person is. And I think your book does a wonderful job of really trying to capture that essence, because she was incredibly complicated, and, you know, very intelligent and funny and witty and loyal and talented, and all of these things that lots of times, like we said earlier, kind of scandals or press, you know, the press rags of the day, those kinds of stories overshadow all of these other aspects of her.
Yes.
And I really respect the work that you and Kendra did in trying to show the complexity of her. and the real
The
Ava.
real Ava, and that's always our goal, the real Ava. Who was Ava Gardner?
Yeah.
Yeah, and your book definitely delves into that. And her relationships is a really important part of that.
Yeah.
And even how she, like, I remembering just reading the book, like how she felt and what kind of relationship she had with her directors, people that she worked with. So it seems like you guys really got into who she really was.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I hope we at least, we tried. It was interesting today when I met Ava Thompson. She said to me that Ava was very simple and very complex. So that's like the two. And it's I think that's just it. That really hits the nail on the head, because she was, in many ways, people always say she was very simple. She had this sort of country girl soul, but at the same time there were so many complexities to her personality, and she lived all over the world, and she knew so many different people, and I think her childhood, here, and the things that happened here, and losing her father so early on, and so there's so many things to consider. So yeah, I hope that the book at least manages to give you a taste.
So that brings up that you did spend some time today with Ava Thompson touring Johnston County and going through the Ava sites that we have nearby. So tell us a little bit about your day today.
Oh, that was such an incredible experience. I mean, I've been reading and looking at photos of these places for so many years, and just to be here finally after all these years, it just feels very special. And of course, to be taken around by Ava was just magical.
And Ava Thompson, of course, is Ava Gardner's great niece,
Yes.
and the co-trustee of the Ava Gardner Trust. And I know
And she grew up here in Johnston County,
and she's
so
named
she
after
knows
Ava.
the area.
So you had a wonderful opportunity to actually spend time with family. Is this your first time meeting any of Ava's
Yes,
family? Oh, that's
it
great.
is. Yes.
That's
So
great.
it was in a way, when we first met this morning, it was like we'd known each other already for a long time, so it was very special. But the first stop was actually Ava's grave site, which was very emotional for me, because again, I've wanted to visit for so many years, so it was really lovely.
And what were the other sites you were able to visit today?
So we went to Grabtown. We saw the home where Ava was born and lived for the first few years of her life, and then we went and saw the teacherage where her mom worked, and then we actually went to Smithfield and saw the different sites where different family members lived, and Ava just shared all the different memories she had of Ava. So that was very lovely. And then we came to the museum, which again blew me away. It's
Yes,
so
I would love to
beautiful.
hear your impressions of the Ava Gardner Museum.
It's wonderful, and I'm not just saying it because you're sitting there.
We didn't force you to say that.
No, there's no one here with a camera.
We're only sitting like 6 feet away.
No, it really sort of just blew me away, but it's so beautiful and so wonderfully curated, and there's so many wonderful pieces, and it's bigger than I expected. So I spent probably about 2 hours just sort of wandering around, and there's so much to see, and well done, great job.
Thank you.
Well, we have a wonderful,
much a
it's a
team
team,
effort,
yes,
that's for
we have a
sure,
wonderful board of directors that helps, and we mentioned, or we told you a little bit about our collections manager, Beth Navarez, who does a wonderful job in helping us kind of put together our exhibits, steer the content and all of that, and helps a lot with our social media and blog, and we're just very lucky to have assembled the group of people that we have that are all very passionate about the mission of the museum and trying to, again, present the full Ava to our visitors.
Yeah, and that is, I think, the best part about our museum is that we really do show the full, every aspect of who Ava was.
You know, one thing we do like to kind of always ask, you know, since you've had time to visit the museum, spend a few hours absorbing what's currently on display, was there a particular artifact or something that really, you were like, oh, this was really neat to see?
Oh,
I know that's a tough
That's a
question
tough
because there's a
question.
lot on display right now.
There's so many different things. I mean, obviously the costumes are stunning, and you see them and you're just like, ooh. So that's the first thing that grabs you, but then the little things as well, you know, the letters and Ava's books and just little pieces of jewelry, and there's a letter that she wrote to Frank Sinatra, which I was like, oh, that's so precious. So, I mean, everything really is put together so well.
Well, we really appreciate that.
Another thing, you know, you of course, as you said, studied film, and you're a film scholar, and you're a writer about film, and you're passionate about film. And Ava had a very long and very active and very wide-ranging career, you know, lots of people kind of, when they haven't taken a deep dive into her career, they don't realize just the breadth of it and how she was in almost every genre, every type of film, worked with so many of these big fellow luminaries of the classic Hollywood era. Are there one or two films that really kind of click with you and you think, gosh, these are either my favorite or these are the ones, if you don't see anything else, you need to watch these to kind of get a taste of the talent that Ava had and what she was able to project on screen?
Well, I'm so glad that you said about the variety, because that's so true, and people don't realize it. I don't think that she started in film noir, and then she did those musicals and
westerns and comedies,
all of it, and then moved on to the 1960s with all those very interesting choices, and then even in the disaster movies of
which
the
I
70s.
love. They're so fun,
And throwing a little horror as well.
A little horror,
I mean, she really did. She was very good. That's the one thing that I think stands the test of time, that she was a good actress, and she was very natural in front of the camera.
And very adaptable, to be able to be believable in all of those different
Absolutely.
types
For
of films.
me, personally, I love The Night of the Iguana. I think it's my favorite film, not just of Ava's, but it's one of my top maybe 3 favorite movies of all time. I think it's just, there's something about it. I can watch it. I don't watch it all the time because I want it to remain special, so maybe I'll watch it once a year or something, but I think it's just, and her performance is wonderful, and the location and everything, and she worked very well with John Huston. He was able to really get it out of her, that special quality that she had, and she was very natural, and she had her little accent as well.
She got to finally use her accent.
So that one is my favorite. I also love Pandora and the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, that's mine.
Really?
Yeah, I love Night of the Iguana as well, but Pandora was one that I had seen kind of early and then revisited when we were doing some work in the museum, a blog and an exhibit and some other things, and it was like, this movie is wonderful, and I just love so much about it.
I mean, it's so magical, it's sort of surrealistic, and they've done a very good job at restoring it. So now when you see the new version, it's really so beautiful. And I actually went to Tossa de Mar in Spain to see all the locations and
see her statue.
See the statue, and that's a great place to visit as well. But I would say those two. But I mean, I love so many of them. I love The Birth of Contessa because that's the first one I ever saw. The Killers is a lovely film too. So many. I know that Kendra's personal favorite is actually Bowani Junction.
Oh, really?
Which is a rare gem as well.
And she got a BAFTA nomination for that.
It's not shown very often anymore, but I think it's a very good film
Very
to watch.
challenging role for Ava.
Very powerful performance.
Yeah, very powerful, and very much something I think she had to dig deep for. That's a really good choice.
Well, I shared my favorite. You should share yours real quick.
It's Night of the Iguana.
Yeah. See?
When you said that, I'm like, of course.
You have a very nice Night of the Iguana corner here. In the museum, so.
There's so many things about that film that were just kind of special, but mainly for me, her performance is great, but I love the fact that her family has told us that kind of was the closest to who Ava was in terms of her real life. And again, she got to use her accent and stuff, but so they all were off-site for the filming, and then they would be motored over in a boat to film during the day, and she chose to water ski. And I just love that. We have this picture of Ava on water skis on her way to work. She's the only one that did
sharks everywhere.
Yes, right. Where, Richard Burton is coming over with his wife, Elizabeth Taylor, on a yacht. Ava's water skiing. I just love that story.
And you can just imagine her like zooming past them. Like that's what I want to imagine. And she just left them in the dust, in the waves.
And to me, that tells you a lot about who Ava was.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's interesting that John Huston really wanted her so badly for this part. He couldn't really see anyone else. And Tennessee Williams agreed with him because Betty Davis played the part on stage, and Williams actually wasn't crazy about Betty's interpretation, so she thought Ava was Maxine. So they had to go to, or John Huston had to go to Madrid to convince her to do it and spend, 3 days and nights just having to party with Ava to pass the test.
Yeah.
And she eventually agreed to
Well, I'm
do
so
it,
glad
but-
he passed.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that movie without him.
No, I don't think anyone can who's seen it.
No.
The whole cast, it's really well cast.
Yeah,
And they had
it's a good
great
movie.
chemistry.
It's a fun movie to watch, and yeah.
Well,
lot of great actors.
you mentioned going to Madrid.
Mhm.
You've been to London, as you mentioned. You've been, other places that you've been to LA,
Los
and now
Angeles.
now you've been here.
Rome as well.
Yes, in Rome. So tell us a little bit about kind of your experiences walking in Ava's footsteps, and now that you've finally been able to kind of bring it full circle to where she began and where her final resting place. So kind of what's that experience been like, and kind of help inform your understanding of Ava?
That's an interesting question. I think I started kind of backwards because the first site I visited was London, and then because I lived in London, and the apartment where she passed away, and then I kind of worked my way back. So I remember going, and as I say, I've been so passionate about Ava, and then there was a period in my life where I really was so, not obsessed, but so passionate about going to visit all these places. So we especially went on holiday to Tossa de Mar just to be where Pandora was shot in Madrid, and I lived in Rome for a year because actually I studied in Rome. So I remember trying to find all the places because she spent quite a lot of time in Rome doing different films at Cinecittà, and yeah, to be here finally at the beginning where it all started.
That's right. You end at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I hope not end. But
Yeah. It culminates.
Yes,
There we
yes,
go.
yes.
it's very special, and you do get a deeper understanding of her when you see the places where she came from and the places that shaped her, especially her early life. It's such a sort of close-knit community, and the beauty of the nature here, the forests and the fields, and there is something about this place which is very hauntingly sort of beautiful and magical, and you can really see why she would have such an enduring sort of connection with this place, that even though she could live anywhere in the world and did, she always came back here and never sort of lost her connection with this place. And I can really understand why now. Even though I've only been here for a couple of days,
Yeah.
it's very seductive.
You're clearly going to have to come back.
I will. I
That's
will.
Well, and this is where she chose to be buried at the end of her life, so you know that her connection was always strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just in LA for 6 weeks, and I went to all the different cemeteries with all the movie stars, and in a way it's so nice that Ava isn't there but is here, at home, which
And she doesn't have like a big fancy,
Mausoleum.
it's just like the rest of the family. It's very simple, and we do have somebody that goes out there and tends to it and stuff. That actually some family members, Joe and Beverly Creech,
Who are also on our board.
Yeah, who are also on our board. I know at least Joe, and they take care of that for us and make sure that it looks good and it's got fresh flowers and
it does. And today there was a little, I don't know if you've seen the corgis.
Yes.
Some of the corgis in it was very adorable.
yeah, that was Bev. Yeah.
No.
Well, you sort of touched on it at the beginning of what, how Ava resonated with you, but, as someone who's perhaps just discovering Ava, what about her personality or her career? What are some things you'd like those people to think about, or kind of, I don't know, how can people kind of connect with Ava in your opinion?
Oh, gosh.
Modern viewers and younger readers and all of that.
Well, she was very modern in a way. I think her outlook on life and the world was very sort of progressive for her time,
and progressive for now.
I guess, yeah. I think now, unfortunately, it's all coming back. But I don't think it was very sort of conscious. She didn't try to be progressive, or it wasn't sort of politically necessarily, informed. She just naturally was that way. She was very open, and she was very friendly and sort of down to earth. And I think it came from that. So her outlook on the world was dictated by that. So she never thought of herself as being better than other people, and she was just as comfortable probably with big stars or famous people that she was with or even probably she was more comfortable with just regular people. I love there's a story, I don't know if it's true or not, but I like to believe it's true, that she would go to the, you know, the opera house in London with a beautiful gown and beautiful shoes and watch this grand opera, and then she would just like take her shoes off and wander through Covent Garden at night, just
Sounds
barefoot.
about right.
I think it probably is true.
Yeah.
And she would chat to all this, you know, market, you know, holders, and she felt very much part of the people, I think. Which I love that about her. And so, I mean, she was an adventurer, she was a traveler. That's so interesting. I mean, she loved being on the road and discovering new places, and she would go to those faraway countries and just kind of become part of the fabric. I mean, she lived in Spain, she was very much embraced by the Spanish and became part of the culture there. And from my own travels, when I've gone to these places, it's so interesting to see that she's still present. You know, you can see pictures of her and people still talk about her, and I think that's so
and have stories that may or may not be true,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah,
she's still like vibrating in these places and living and inhabiting these places, even though she's been gone since 1990. And I think that's a real testament to her character and the just the excitement that surrounded her, and again the way that she, like you said, that she really embraced every place she occupied. She wanted to know the food and the beverage and the culture and the music and the dress and all of that, no matter where she lived. She fully like embraced everything that was around her.
And she didn't hold any prejudices. So I think that helped her too, to assimilate with people that were all different.
Yes.
But she just didn't hold prejudice against anybody.
No, I think that's very true. And she just had that zest for life. She had all that energy, which I don't know where she got
I know.
from. She would party all night and then go to set and still look stunning, and you know, she had time to do all these things. I think that's incredible. You know, she really made the most of her life. I think she really experienced everything, which to the fullest, which I think is incredible.
And such a, you know, we like to say how, you know, bold she was and trailblazing in that respect, because that was seemingly so ahead of her time. And I think that, you know, at the end of her life, she was very happy and content with how she lived it. You know, no regrets, I don't think, because she did just kind of embrace everything that came her way.
She did say, honey, I've had a hell of a good
That's
time.
right.
Yeah, that's what she
Exactly.
said. I mean, I'm sure she probably had some regrets, and you know, whatever happened with Frank Sinatra and that didn't work out, or maybe she didn't have a family. I think she did have moments where she thought, oh, maybe I could have had a different life. And I think she always considered what the alternative would have been. But I think essentially she just made the best of what happened to her. And it was an incredible story. I mean, it's like a Cinderella story. That this girl from Grabtown, North Carolina, just became the most beautiful woman in the world, and one of the most celebrated women of her generation, really. So I don't think she took that for granted, and I think she enjoyed it.
I think she did too.
Yeah.
I think she loved her life, and I think she was very happy, you know, in London and kind of with her lovely corgis and staying connected with her family and friends. And I think, you know, she made this wonderful world for herself, which I think is really remarkable.
Yeah, I agree.
Sort of a trailblazer. Yeah.
Well, certainly not a sort of tragic or sort of a victim.
That's something that always frustrates us, you know, sometimes depending on who's writing about her or who's interpreting her life, we'll kind of, we'll put that tragic spin on it. And I think that's really inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean, there's sad parts to every life story,
Sure.
there's tragic moments, but essentially I think her life is very triumphant almost.
I agree.
And I have to tell you, just from what I know, she would have hated that. But she knew that was gonna happen too, you know, but she probably would have hated some of the things that have been sort of skewed.
Well, I think that's, again, another wonderful thing about the book that you and Kendra wrote, is that you do not put her in this tragic victimhood space. You keep, it's very, you know, you're honest, and you tell the highs and lows of her life, just like anyone else has highs and lows, but she's very celebrated in this book. And I think for those of us who are Ava fans, and certainly those of us involved with the museum and are very passionate about Ava, we really appreciate the work that you did and the thoughtfulness that you put into making sure that that's a really great way to interpret Ava and to share her story in a very different way.
Yeah, I think you used a beautiful word. It's a celebration. That's what it was meant as. It was a celebration of her life, her work, very importantly, yeah, we weren't looking to sort of put a spin on it. You know, she was a tragic victim of this or that.
Well, I do have to say to the people who are watching this book, you need to get this book. It is a great book, and like I said, the pictures all by themselves. But
And let me ask, where can you get it? Can you
well,
get it?
okay, I think you can get it in our gift shop at the Ava Gardner
That's
Museum.
lucky.
So yes, feel free to order now.
Yeah.
But Anthony has written another book. And I want to just ask him a couple of questions about his new baby, which is a book about the one and only Jessica Lange, who we all love. I would like to know a little bit about the process of doing that book and where we are with that. It has now been published and released, is that right?
That's right, yeah, it came out last month, finally, after, I mean, I started doing it or thinking about it at the same time as we sort of wrapped Ava, so that's how many years?
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
7 years or something? A long time, so it took a long time to do that one, and this one is my solo project, so it took a long time to do it, but I'm very proud of it. I'm happy that it's out there in the world, and it's kind of a different format because it's not a coffee table book, it's just more of a traditional biography with just some pictures in the middle, but it's more text heavy, but yeah, it's a very different actress and a different sort of story, but
and very different time frame as well, so it's really different all the way around.
But she was another person that I was very fascinated with, and it's very interesting actually because this is a very personal story, but the summer after my 12th birthday, when my dad passed away that year, so I was very vulnerable and kind of, feeling very low, and my mom I was away on holiday with my dad's family. We went to the seaside, and while I was away, my mom recorded those 2 documentaries for me on a VHS tape. One was about Ava Gardner. It was, I don't know if you know that one from the early 90s where all the people are interviewed. I think it's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a very nice documentary. So
Is that the one about Gregory Peck is in? Yeah,
exactly, and Ronnie McDowell and all these people.
Oh yes.
So she recorded that one, and then she recorded another one that was about Jessica Lange, and they were on the same videotape. And I remember watching them over and over again. So there's a strange connection, and I ended up doing books on both of them. So I don't know.
Wow, that's a real
That's great.
full circle moment for you.
And tell everyone the name of the book.
So it's called Jessica Lange: An Adventurer's Heart.
And it's available everywhere.
And
Where
does it,
good books are sold.
Yes.
wherever books are sold. We unfortunately do not carry that one.
Yeah.
Does it delve into her film career as deeply as you do with Ava?
Yes, it was kind of the same. That's how I start with the work.
Because you are a film historian.
I guess, yeah, that's what it is. And I also, I always want to respect the subject, whether they're dead or alive. So I never want to start with like, oh, I'm gonna go deeply into your personal life. And I think it's important, but I also think, to be respectful is very important. Jessica Lange is still with us, so I really was careful not
That's
to.
a very different.
Step on her toes.
And still a very active, vibrant actress as well.
Exactly, yeah. And she's very private. And
much like Ava.
yes,
It's a
very strong-willed
overlap.
as well. So you know that if you do something that she doesn't like, she will let you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that, but at the same time, I wanted to be true and honest and tell her story.
Yeah.
So it was a balancing act, and it took quite a few years for me to get her on my side, in the sense that at the beginning she was like, I don't want a book about me, please don't do it. And I thought, oh gosh, so I was very disappointed because I wanted to pay tribute to her, and there's never been a book about her. And then it took me a few years to sort of get her to warm up to it. And by the end of it, she was all right. She's like, you can do it.
That's great. So this really is the only book about Jessica Lange that's been out.
Yes, I mean there was a little book published in the 80s when she first started, but that's so long ago. So this is the first sort of full-length biography, and it's not authorized, but it's not unauthorized either. It's kind of
she knows and
she knows it's out there.
approves.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we both are really looking forward to reading it,
absolutely.
for sure.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Well, this has just been delightful.
Yes.
This has been such a wonderful conversation.
Such a thrill to have you here. We're really
Thank you.
excited, and it's just been a whirlwind, I know, for you. You've been in Los Angeles, and then you've been in Atlanta, and now you're here, and you're going back to Los Angeles,
Yes.
and all the travel. So thanks for making us part of your United
Yes.
States tour.
And this has been a long time coming. We talked about doing this through Zoom, and I'm so glad we could actually do it in person in the museum in
yes.
Ava's hometown.
It's very special.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely. We do really want to thank you for coming, and we really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
It's been
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed our Ava Chats, and let us know if you have any questions, if you want the book, or anything else. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.